How we doing, everybody? This is the Be Radical movie review of the 2020 The Grudge. So now this is a technically sequel to the original Grudge series from 2004 to 2009. And this is the American version. So this does take place before and after the events. It's kind of weird. You'll know if you watch it, but this is directed by Nicholas Plessy, and he also wrote it as well. And Jeff Bueller also helped with the story. And I had hopes going into this film. I thought this film looked kind of interesting. I think the trailer definitely put a lot of the best spots in it. I like John Cho. I think Tara Westwood's decent, but I think could have worked for this movie. And I like that it had an R rating, because the original Grudge films didn't, except for The Grudge 3, that did have the R rating. Now, I haven't seen 2 and 3, but I have seen The Grudge, which was PG-13, a remake, and I'm just not a fan. I didn't really think it was that great. I think there are some interesting and some disturbing stuff, but I overall think it's just really messy and convoluted and just kind of fails. And I feel like I could say the same thing about this film. This film is very, very messy. It is all over the place. And I understand it's supposed to be an anthology. There's different characters, and they all kind of intertwine with this curse and the Grudge itself. And it kind of pays respect to the other Grudge films for doing that. But I feel like it's just not good. And a big part of that is the script, the characters, and the scares. I think those are really the big issues with this film. So if we're going to tackle the first thing, it's got to be the script. The script is really uninteresting. It's boring, it's lazy, and nothing seems to be developing. There's a lot of filler in here. You can have that kind of filler in movies as long as it works for the character development, it's entertaining, or it's trying to be said something. That you can get away with it in a lot of movies if you care. You won't even notice it because you're enjoying the film. But it's so noticeable because you don't care about the characters or what the characters are saying, because it's just the same generic dialogue of question and answering, or just exposition filled, just characters saying the same thing to another character, explain what this is going on without the story just presenting it to us and showing us with subtle storytelling. And it hurts. It definitely hurts, and it makes me want to fall asleep. I just think it's so uninteresting. Everything. And there's 3 storylines that all could have been good, but nothing's really developed. But nothing's actually focused. There's a lot of confusion of focus in this film. There's parts where it wants to focus on the John Cho character with his wife. That actually seemed kind of interesting, and I kind of wanted them to go that route. But those other parts, I'm like, oh, those are interesting. The premise, the start of it, you're like, okay. But then when you're diving in, you're like, nothing is developing. Nothing actually happens for the plot. It just seems like it's just a linear. It's supposed to go up a little bit, keep going, and with the rising action and all that stuff that a normal story would work, it doesn't happen with this. And by the time you get to the climax to the film, you feel like you've been cheated out. And even with those generic horror films that do come out, that have that big ending with a big scary moment, and it's just a big battle, and this film kind of cheats it out and does something different, which I will not spoil, but it just does something different that it's not a good kind of different. It just feels like you're cheated out, and it's just not good. And I like when movies do different things, but I think this just did not work well because you don't care about the characters. And I keep repeating this because it's so important for films to like your characters. And even if they are an unlikable character, as long as you're understanding why and there's something that you like about them, that there's got to be something that keeps you invested. Is it their dreams? Is it their goals? Is it their charm? Is it something that the actor is doing, their presentation, to make you like them? That's what a great movie does. And this movie, it seems like I don't really care. And none of the performances are really that good, because I think the acting is kind of bad. I think a lot of it's pretty passable, I'd say. I've definitely seen worse acting, and I think that's where I have to draw the comparison, where no one's really terrible, but if I really broke it down, it's bad. But I've seen movies where it's just so noticeably terrible and bad, and it seemed like none of them were trained professionals. So if you look at it like that, I guess that makes that a little bit of a point. Not really, but it keeps this film from being one of the worst horror films ever made. The next thing I'd say is just the characters. The characters are very underdeveloped and they're not really important to the story. I think some of this could have been easily cut out and it wouldn't have changed. I think they should have just focused on one of them, pick one of the three, because it's really three, and then there's other small subplots. Like, this movie tries to think it's bigger than what it actually is, and it just isn't. And then just focus on it. I think this wouldn't have been that bad if it was a TV series. I think you could have gotten away with it. Maybe not with this writing and the way it looks. It's definitely not going to pass. But this idea of an anthology with The Grudge and The Curse, I think they should have just made this a show. I think it would have just been really interesting. But beside that point, I feel like you don't care because you're not getting enough screen time of each of these little subplots. So every time you're kind of getting interested and, ooh, it's pulling you in a little, it just stops. And it kind of does this repeatedly to the point where you don't care anymore because the movie's almost over and they still haven't done it. That's a big issue. And I think some of the actors are probably just giving a passable performance, just getting their paycheck and doing their thing. And it definitely does show because no one really has a standout performance for the most part. And the last thing is got to be the scares. The scares are really, really terrible. They're just forced in there. And I think later half in the film, not a spoiler or anything, but it definitely seems like they didn't try at all. They just threw them in there just to have it. Because I think after a while they were checking the production. They're like, hey, I don't think we have enough scares in our movies. Do you think people will actually go watch this? I think we're going to need to put this in here. I think we're trying to focus on too big of our story that we think it is, and we weren't focused on the scares at all. So we'll just throw something in here. And you can tell because there's no tension, there's no suspension built up, there's no creaking of windows, there's no interesting or slight camera work that's used to create the horror, because the best horror movies have really great directing, because you have to have that, because sometimes the best horror is created just with how you position the camera. That's what makes it scarier. And I feel like it's just so lazy. It's just a scary creature coming from behind. You can see a mile away. That's not very subtle. Don't even try to be subtle. And it's just a creepy face that comes out and it blows through speakers with their loud, annoying voice just for a jump scare that scares you for 2 seconds just because it's loud. Simply because it's loud. And guarantee if you turn off that sound just a little bit, try watching it. It doesn't scare you. You want to know why? Those creatures are not scary. Nothing was built up to get you on ease, to unravel you, and waiting for this moment when you see this creature. And then the after effect. If you think of the after effect of a jump scare, what does it do? Is it still scary? Is it still keep you on edge? Is there still tension? You look at some of the like really great horror films, like The Conjuring, Hereditary, even Us, which Us isn't super scary, but at least when something's happening, it still keeps going because they built this up. There was actual added tension, and you can tell there was great filmmaking behind all those films. In this film, they just kind of show up, and then they scare him, the character runs away out of the frame, and the scene's over. And I was a little shocked because a lot of the modern day horror films, the crappy ones obviously, they'll kind of keep going. They'll keep chasing you. It's a big scene. You still feel like you're scared, and they do that a lot in this movie where they don't continue it. They just stop it. I thought that was really, really strange because maybe I just haven't watched enough crappy movies, horror films. I try to watch them all this past decade, and I haven't really seen that. That's really, really terrible, and it's really lazy. And that's a really bad start for Nicholas Plessy for his big wide release film. Just to show like you really can't do horror, man, because nothing else is really interesting. Even your own horror. Sometimes some of the coolest and like scariest horror films, like Sinister. Now I think parts of that movie are good, but some of it's not that great. But I think that movie's genuinely pretty scary, and that's why the movie gets a bump up for me, because the scares actually work. The rest of the stuff doesn't, so that kind of helps it. And this movie doesn't do any of that. Also, the score is really bad. It's just a bunch of stock music that they probably found online, just threw it together, and they say, hey, composer, you want to credit your name to this? Sure, why not? I'll do it for a paycheck. Um, I'd say the cinematography is really bad as well. I feel like some of the lighting is very amateurish, where the lighting just shines through and it doesn't feel like it was done on purpose. It feels like they couldn't get the right shot they wanted, the right angle for the lighting to work on this set of characters in this scene. Cinematography is just really gross and some of the worst I've ever seen. And I know it's trying to go for that gloomy, dark look, but that doesn't work when your story's not interesting. There's nothing cool to look at. There's no change of color. It just seems like it's just always the same dark, brownish, greenish colors throughout the whole film, and it never changes. And it's just so boring looking. I don't even think a 4K upscale transfer of this film could work. I don't even think it can make it better. Maybe just detail-wise, because I don't think the cinematography is just good at all. And the movie's already boring as it is. And if it's a boring-looking film, that's an issue. That is the icing on the cake, which brings this movie a lot down. And I mean, it should have been expected. This is a young filmmaker and it has a $10 million budget. But then again, a movie like Us didn't have a big budget either. And the cinematography, I think, is really gorgeous. And I think there's a wide array of color that flows throughout that movie in certain scenes. And it works perfectly well with what's happening. In this film, it doesn't do that. So basically what I guess I'm pointing down to is there's no passion, there's no creativity. And that is something that bothers me so much because I feel like so many people have sold their souls to Hollywood and now they just want to make money. And I get it. It's a business. It's industry. But film is always about artistic creativity and what you want to make. So I respect those who, yeah, they want to make money, but they care about the craft of their film and what they made and they're proud of it. And that's what they're focused on. Money, whatever. It's cool that they're rich. But they know, like, if they're making good movies and they have a good marketing team, they know they're going to be good. Some of those places just don't have good marketing. And that's why some of those films don't work. But they are great films, you know? And this film didn't have that. It just took the name of The Grudge that has already made a lot of money with the first American remake making $187 million worldwide on a 2004 money currency and with a $10 million budget. So inflation that, you probably make a lot more money. So it was just a lazy cash grab. I cannot recommend this film to anyone, and this is definitely the worst time to put this out in the beginning of January as your first film of the year. And usually January has a lot of crappy movies, but this was in there, and I should have expected it, but I don't go into films hating it, because who wants to hate a film? I don't think really anyone does, unless you have an agenda. But in any case, I'm going to give this film a 1 out of 10, and it's just, I just don't even see it. It's not even remotely to watch, even if it's like hilariously bad or anything like that. It's just bad. So if you guys want, please subscribe to me, because I'm very passionate about films and my views only get better. And I feel like I have something to say about the film industry. Please give a like to help the YouTube algorithms go through and to get my video up. And leave some comments, positive feedback, anything like that. That would just help me and help the channel grow. And I definitely will be listening to you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and see you for the next review.